Greetings, everyone. It's the Jamaican Tory back with you again as we prepare to discuss an aspect of the constitutional reform process, whereas the JLPNP attempts to usurp Jamaica's constitutional monarchy and replace it with their constitutional republic. I'm asking you all to please like, share, and subscribe. Especially the sharing, especially the subscription, it really helps to get the word out because this government of ours is getting away with far too much, and we the people cannot allow them to continue doing so. Today, I will be discussing the topic, the value of a constitutional monarchy. As we all know, this is a monarchist channel dedicated to the protection and preservation of Jamaica's independence constitution, which enshrines the monarchy throughout. The question then is, why did our founding fathers choose to give us an monarchical constitution? Why did they not choose a republic? I am here to posit that their decision was in fact the right choice. The question now is, what is it that makes a monarchy superior to a republic? Before I get into discussion, I'd like to tell a story I once heard regarding the United States. And it was said that after the whole American Revolution, when Benjamin Franklin was attending the Constitutional Convention one day, and when he was leaving the convention, a lady stopped him and asked him, "What have you given us?" And his response was, "A republic, if you can keep it." And I have said on more than one occasion, both in private videos and also in written form, that that was a short-sighted choice, and quite frankly, the wrong one, based on the errors that have been seen in the political system of America and subsequently all other republics that have taken on this model. It has always been my belief that the parliamentary system, which enshrines constitutional monarchy, is a far more superior form of government. Why do I say this? That's what I'm going to talk about today. So, the idea that is normally posited is that a republic is more democratic and more representative and that. I, however, would like to throw cold water on that argument and show that a constitutional monarchy, not an absolute monarchy now, a constitutional monarchy is actually the government that best heals any democratic deficit that may exist within a government. And I'm going to give you 5 reasons why a monarchy, rather than hindering democracy, actually enhances the democracy of a country. Reason number 1, a constitutional monarchy is inherently non-partisan. And in a country such as ours, where we are so politically divided, it is very important for us to have a head of state that is above party politics. Yes, I keep mentioning the JLPNP as if they were one single entity. And the truth is, there are times when they act as a single entity, such as when they want to get rid of the monarchy. But in many other cases, you tend to find that the JLPNP is split between the JLP and the PNP, both in Parliament and also in the public. And we know that Jamaica has a very divisive political structure. Not as divisive as, say, America with their Republicans and Democrats, but divisive nonetheless. And because of that, it is important that the person that we have as our head of state is above party. A president, by its very nature, can never ever be above party. Because even if the presidential office is a ceremonial office, and even if the presidential office is not necessarily a political position in terms of the day-to-day cut and thrust of politics, the fact of the matter is the very nature of a presidency requires it to be in some sense political, because of the way how a president is chosen by the parties within the parliament. When you have a monarchy, on the other hand, when there is no political party involvement in the choosing of a head of state, then you have a head of state that can truly represent the realm as a whole, rather than this faction or that faction. And don't be fooled by the argument that a president represents the national unity. That is a smokescreen argument, and that has never been true. Not for Jamaica, not for any other presidential or parliamentary republic. Second reason why a monarchy is superior is because a monarchy is incorruptible. And what do I mean by incorruptible? Well, in this case, I'm referring to the fact that politicians on a whole tend to be in the pockets of their donors, whoever their donors might be. It is just part and parcel of a political system, unless, of course, you have an autocratic system where one person is a supreme dictator overall. But we don't have that kind of system in Jamaica, and I will never advocate for that kind of system in Jamaica. I actually think that our democracy serves us well. But part of that democracy is the constitutional monarchy, is having the king as our head of state. And because of that, what that then means is that because the king is truly a political figure, he is not beholden to anybody for his position. And we know that, for example, in a partisan political system where politicians running for office, they are often beholden to someone for their position. Normally, their donors. Yes, they are beholden to the people as well. But as I discussed before in a previous video, the model that is being prescribed for Jamaica is not one where the people will elect the president, but rather where the president will be selected by the government and then rubber stamped by parliament. In other words, then the president will be in the pockets of whoever happens to hold the government of the day. And for an office that is supposed to be neutral, that is supposed to be non-partisan, it is unacceptable to have the head of state being in such a position. Therefore, it would be better to have a head of state that is above all of that. So that is the second reason why a partisan system, why a republican system is not as democratically accountable as a monarchy. And speaking of democratic accountability, that's actually the third reason that I will go into. Now, it is often said that because the king is unelected, then that means he's not accountable to the people, whereas the president is accountable to the people. Now, I have tended to find that that isn't exactly so. What I have tended to find is that a president is more likely to extend his position, his powers beyond what is normally allowed, because he thinks that being a president makes him secure. and that he doesn't necessarily have to answer to the people during the time that he's in office. Maybe if he were to run again in a re-election, maybe then. But for his term of office, he's not accountable to the people. A monarchy, on the other hand, is always accountable to the people. And here's the reason why. It sounds paradoxical, I know, but hear me out. Because we live in a world where democracies are the order of the day for the most part, monarchies in carrying out their duties, monarchs in carrying out their duties will be cognizant of this fact. And because they are cognizant of this fact, they will act in a way that is basically responsive to the will of the people, because they know that if they don't, revolution will throw them out. Now I give you a prime example of this happening. So, in the aftermath of World War I, when George V was King of Great Britain, because he saw what was happening in the other countries of Europe, in Germany, in Austria, in Hungary, in Russia, left, right, and center, monarchs were being overthrown because of various reasons. King George V, what he did was that he basically helped to advocate for a lot of reforms in the socio-political system that actually helped to grant more rights and more representation to the people. In contrast to this, in countries such as Germany and in countries such as Russia, where the monarchs are overthrown and they were replaced with elected leaders, like President Hindenburg in Germany, like Vladimir Lenin in Russia, what these Republican leaders did was that they basically set the framework for worse dictators to come after them. So in Russia's case, in Germany's case, Hindenburg was replaced by Hitler. In Russia's case, Lenin was replaced by Stalin, because the Republican leaders did not put in place enough guardrails to safeguard the Constitution so that these dictators would not come to power. In Britain, that did not happen because King George V and later King George VI were responsive enough to the needs of the people so that fascism would never take rise. Neither fascism or communism or any other extremist ideology would take rise, which means that whereas Germany and Russia fell to dictatorships, the United Kingdom did not. And that, of course, was because of the responsiveness of the monarchy in Britain. Because they saw what happened to the monarchy of Germany, to the monarchy of Russia, and that led them to reform. Whereas countries that became republics in the aftermath of the war did not fare so well. Why do I tell the story? In our 21st century context, where the king already knows how fragile his position is, the last thing he would do is to put in place any measure that would threaten his position or the position of his heirs. Therefore, he will tread carefully. A president, on the other hand, has absolutely no reason to tread carefully, because as far as they're concerned, they're secure in their position anyway. And even if they get booted out by the next election, they still have their pension to look forward to, which thanks to the compensation package is a very hefty pension. So they're not too concerned about overstepping their boundaries like the king would be. So that's the third reason. Another reason why a monarchy is superior to a republic is because a monarchy by its very nature represents some sort of a continuity and stability within the government. I'm actually going to crunch this with number 5, which of course is the monarchy prevents anyone else from gaining absolute power. And it sounds paradoxical to say that a monarchy will prevent anyone from gaining absolute power, because monarchy is being, often conflated with absolutism. And there was a time when monarchy did represent absolutism, especially in the 17th and 18th century, with the likes of people like Louis XIV of France, or Tsar Peter the Great of Russia, or Frederick the Great of Prussia, or rulers like those back in the day. But in our modern day context, we see that the way how monarchies in the real world operate, with the exception, of course, of countries like Saudi Arabia and a few other countries in West Asia. In the Western world, you tend to find that monarchies, instead of being the progenitors of absolute power or absolute state power, they're actually the guardrails of democracy. And I'll give you an example of that happening in the case of Spain, and I'll show how it links back to continuity. So, in the 1970s, after Spain had come out of the long Francoist dictatorship and had re-established the monarchy, there were some within Spain who wanted to return to that old way of doing things. But the new king of Spain, King Juan Carlos, favored a more democratic Spain. And what happened was that when the right wingers or the far right tried to take over Spain, once again it was the king who stepped in, and he was the one who restored the democratic order of things. And that system that he has implemented has continued to this very day with his son, King Philip. So because of that, we see the element of continuity coming out. We also see the whole idea where the monarchy serves to prevent the rise of absolute power by would-be dictatorships, would-be dictators. And speaking of that, I'm reminded of this gem that I read once, which talks about all the ways in which the monarchy prevent others from, gaining absolute power. So while the monarchy remains the fount of justice, nobody can really take over the courts. While they remain the supreme power in the state, no dictator can take over the state. While they remain commander-in-chief, no would-be dictator or wannabe strongman general can take over the armed forces and use the armed forces to take over the government. In other words, the function of the monarchy, or one of the functions of the monarchy, is to prevent anyone else from gaining power. And some persons might say, why is that a good thing? Because, we are in our country, why should somebody else in another country prevent our people from gaining power? It's a misunderstanding. While it is true, yes, that there are offices and roles and functions within our government, and obviously we're gonna need some persons to occupy. Fact of the matter is, there are limits in what any government should be able to do. The concept of limited government is very important to liberty. I know I sound like a libertarian, but just indulge me for a minute. And because of that, we need to have a system in place where the powers of the government are inevitably limited in one form or the other. The very existence of a figure that already occupies the highest position, that already occupies the supreme position, means that once that position is occupied, then it cannot be overtaken or usurped. Unless, of course, the constitution is altered first, or unless there is a revolution, as was the case in Russia, as was the case in Germany. And of course, Nobody will really want to see a bloody revolution here. We have enough crime and bloodshed as it is without adding a revolution into the mix. So because of that, the only way they can take over the system is by changing it through the law. But at the end of the day, we the people do have the power to go to the ballot box and tell this government, we know what you're doing. We're not going to allow you to have supreme power. We're going to keep the Constitution as it is because the Constitution keeps you in line. And when I say you, I mean the ruling class, the JLP. We do have the power to keep them in line. But that can best be done through the Constitution that we have right now. And that is the reason why I'm urging you all to think very carefully about what is being said and what the ruling class intends to do as far as our constitution is concerned, and tell them, you know what, this republic idea is nonsense, and therefore we will reject it because the constitutional monarchy is always better. Thank you.